that specificity is so important when we talk about the content. We don't just create the schema markup that simply validate different tools. So the other way how we can improve the content is we can optimize for embedding. So the other one is writing with clearly defined entities. Hi, my name is Ahmad Khan, and today we will discuss about how to get your e-commerce store found in AI search. So here you can see we have the complete mind map I have created, and this is the holistic system we follow in our agency to help different e-commerce founders to get more customers from AI search. So first of all, why we should care about that? So here you can see a study which I mentioned here. A study from Profound indicates that 58% of American shoppers already use AI at least once a week to browse or make purchase. So the study shows that the search behavior has changed a lot. And you know what? In the early days, there were just search engines, and people used to search for different keywords about different products. And as marketers, we were supposed to use those keywords, or the commercial terms, to use in our own product page or the content or the commercial page to improve the connection or to improve the visibility, and in short improve the rankings of the pages. And then people come to that page, and they simply go through the page and they buy from that specific page. But after after the launch of ChatGPT and different generative AI models, the whole experience of buying has shifted a lot. And that's why this was a study done by Profound, and 58% of Americans are affected based on that. And it's just a simple study, but yes, the behavior is constantly changing. And as you know, different generative AI models are coming in, and it's not just about ranking, it's not just about only one platform. There are different platforms, and the whole experience is getting changed rapidly. So that's why it's important. And uh, the other thing is that we have had multiple e-commerce stores founders to get millions of sales by helping them to get visibility in different generative AI models. And the good thing is that, let's say, if a page, if your e-commerce store has a page, let's say it's a product page, and it's ranking in Google search. So people are coming to that page, and they might be educating themselves, they might be just comparing some stuff. So in the past, that was the experience, like not much qualified traffic were coming to the website. Like there could be different sets of people. But after the launch of generative AI models and the shift in that experience, now the traffic is more qualified. Why? Because people search for different comparisons, or different they take different information directly into the models. And when they have to actually buy something, because they have already decided by getting all that information, and they only visit the website when they have to buy something. So that's why the conversion rates are much higher, and that was my prediction when all that launched. And we were having a meeting in our company. So I mentioned that it will be good for the website, because not bad traffic would be coming, not bad, but the traffic that's not much converting. So that's the shift, and that's why we care. And this is the new world, and we have to make sure that whatever we are, whatever we are spending our resources on, because the marketing has budgets, and we have the confined resources. So we have to make sure that wherever we are spending our resources, they are not getting wasted, and we are getting the best ROI from them. So let's dive deeper into how we can improve the visibility into their generative AI models. So if we differentiate in that visibility in two aspects, so the one aspect is content. So let's start from that. So whatever the website you have created, like it's obviously if it's an e-commerce store with product pages, with category pages, with different blogs. So the way how you are communicating the information to the users or to the to search engines or to generative AI models, that's through content. You create the home page, you put the content there. You create the product page, you put the content there, and it's keep going on. And content is the most important thing because that's how people communicate with each other. You might use different languages, and that's the actual way of communication. But if we talk about the technical terms, so we take content as data. uh, for example, if the website has good data, then it will get the benefit from that. And if it has bad data or the bad content, then obviously it will get the disadvantage from that. And it's not just simple that it's good content, it's bad content. It's not just about the single page, because content is not just about what you just see. There is a lot of backend things as well. So, for example, the structured data is also related to the content, because that's the way how you communicate with different search engines or different generative AI models. So let's start from how we can make sure that whatever the data or the content we are putting on our e-commerce store, that's totally aligned uh, with with the best strategy to get the most of the benefit from generative AI models and getting more citations and visibility in those models. So let's start from specificity. So this is so important. And before the launch of generative AI models, we were I was talking about that a lot when I was discussing about semantic SEO and Core framework and different, reading different patents from Bill Slawski, and Olaf Kopp has done a great job in that as well. So the thing is that specificity is so important when we talk about the content, because if a content is not specific, then it contains a lot of fluff. There's a lot of contextless information. There's a lot of vague information. So specificity is so important if we talk about the content quality and the probability of that specific content to uh, get more visibility in generative AI models. So here are some ways how we can improve that specific element of the content. You can see here that concrete facts, figures, dates, and measurable data points. So it should be communicated with a writer who is writing content, or if you have the generative AI models to train. So uh, you can make sure that whatever you're writing on uh, the page, like it could be the product page or whatever the page you are creating. So you can make sure that it contains these kind of elements. It like the exact dates, the figures, the data, or the complete research about whatever the topic is being discussed. And obviously the vague words are should be avoided. So for example, there are some vague words which just which are just used as fillers, like most, many, or these kind of words. So they don't show the proper expertise of the writer who is writing. So it aligns with the expertise or it overall as well, and it also align with the content helpfulness and content overall quality. So these are some of there are some other ways how we can improve the specificity of the content. So we can add specific stats, specific quantifiable facts, some clear numbers, and some data points, some proper usage of factual information. You know what, it's hard to write these kind of uh, this kind of information on your web page, even if you are using AI. So there are a lot of chances that AI fabricate the facts, and AI may hallucinate. So you can simply write to AI that write the facts, or write the numbers, and AI can simply give you that kind of stuff. But still, there must be some there must be some criteria, or there must be a trained editor who actually know the niche, the expertise of the actual knowledge domain, or whatever the content is about, whatever the niche is, or whatever the facts mentioned there. So even if you are using AI, so there must be some criteria for validating, or fact checking those facts, those numbers, because there are a lot of chances for these kind of fabrications or hallucinations. That's why it's not a good idea to scale content, or put spam on the website. And it can actually harm the website if you are scaling content, or putting a lot of spam content. In our agency, for some of the processes, we use AI for different processes, such as we train that AI to by doing multiple audits, and using some kind of reasoning to come up with the logic uh, behind the facts, or behind the information used in the content. But yes, we can't rely 100% on AI. There is some kind of there are a lot of nuances, and AI in certain times AI can do a lot of you know silly mistakes. That's why it's not recommended to scale the content. So the other thing which uh, we can do to improve specificity is the data, or the data content, we take that same, so it should be in extractable formats. So the extractable could be like using tables, using bullet points, or labeled metrics, clearly labeling whatever the data is mentioned in the content. In our in our workflow, in our system, we often use different annotation lines. So for example, if there is an image, we mention that the image about this is below. We add some qualifications to that annotation, and then we talk about like the image is below, or we also talk about the bullet points. If we are mentioning about the bullet points, for example, the uh, how to use, uh, how to use pods, for example. So we mentioned that the steps to use Redmi pods or model X axis are mentioned below. So this is the clear annotation, and that helps different models to better understand the content, what actually you're talking about. It makes their job easier, because they don't have to uh, they don't have to do extra thinking about that. You already have mentioned and have made their job easier. So in terms of more specificity, so there's a correlation, and it's positive correlation, that the more specific your content is, the more likely to be selected, synthesized, and surfaced in AI models. But you know, if you're writing a specific content, it must also be helpful and more enriched with information, and more readable as well. So let's take an example. For example, you're writing a content, like it could be a buyer guide in your e-commerce store. The way how you write, bef- before you write, you have to finalize the ICP, and ICP is so important, because to make the content more specific and more enriched with information, you may write a research paper. You may come up with a research paper, and that's totally off, and it's not advisable to write in that way, that in every paragraph uh, you have put a lot of numbers, a lot of stats. So it's not necessary and it's not advisable. So what you have to do is you have to come up with the ICP, the education level of that ICP, or the age group, or the gender, or whatever your ICP is. And you have to make sure that your content is aligned with that ICP. The readability score or the actual readability must be aligned with that ICP. It should not be like a like a research paper. So it will not get rankings or any kind of benefit because that's not aligned with your user cluster. So as previously we have mentioned that search engines cluster documents and cluster users. So and there are different patents about that as well, that the users are get profiled, and search engines or different models also create the embeddings for those users to understand where each user actually stand, and understanding the context or understanding the behavior of that specific user. That's why we have to make sure that our content is aligned with users. So uh, what we have just discussed in specificity, it's simple, and we need to make sure that the content is good readable, and it contains the information that is not vague, and that is aligned with the topic, and that is helpful for the users. So user helpfulness is the most important thing if we talk about here. So specificity, we have discussed about that, and now we are on the structured data. And uh, structure, first of all, why structured data is important, let's talk about that before. So uh, generative AI models, they don't read every word on the page. Why? Because they have to save their cost, and that's why they don't read every the complete content or the word. So they have to rely uh, on different structured signals, and structured data is one of them. There could be a lot of other signals as well. So this is so important because if your content lack those structured signals, yes, you have written a good content, but if the structure is not good, and if the signals are not much strengthened, then your content may face a lot of trouble in getting more visibility in those models. So schema markup is one of the most important thing which we often try to make sure to add, and it helps giving them the clarity, the meaning, the relationships, and the utility of the content, both at the page level and both at the individual elements, such as different paragraphs or different elements on the page. So in terms of structured data or schema markup, there are different tools you can find online to put schema markup on the website, but how we approach that implementation is we don't just do we don't just uh, uh, we don't just create the schema markup that simply validate different tools. So we try to add more layers or uh, more context or the information for models to extract, but still we don't add fluff to that markup. It's so important because you have to find the actual elements you can put there, and those elements are helpful for uh, your page and the models who are getting help from schema markup to getting more clarity about that. So uh, the other structured element that is so you can see the different types, like you can use different schema markups, for example FAQ page, product and offer, organization for entity disaggregation. And it's so important because generative models have to disambiguate the topics and the entities what you are talking about, and it makes their job much easier. And the other schema markup types you can see, like how to review events and articles for timely and opinion based content. So it's simple that you can come up with the schema markup types which are worthy to be added, and then you can come up with their code, and you you can leverage different models to come up with a code that is helpful for your website, and that is not fluff, and that add more information about that, and don't just use fluff there. It's so simple. So the other two ways how uh, we can communicate the clarity is the creation of custom ontologies and the custom knowledge graph. So we used to talk about, even before generative AI models, and Google is a semantic search engine, and we used to talk about different ways how we can clearly communicate uh, the website structure with uh, different search engines. So the way how we published content on our page, on our the complete website, we try to make sure that it's aligned with the Google on knowledge graph. So let's say if we are covering a main entity on our website, and the associations between that entity and other entities are done in a certain way in the Google on knowledge graph. So we try to make sure that we follow those associations on our website as well, because it signals Google that we are not just uh, you know covering the topic only for selling something, but we are also covering the whole context of that. And that's how we are making sure that our website is helpful for the actual reader. We don't just cover some shallow information on our website, but we cover the holistic information on our website. So that's also so important. And um, so the other way how we can improve the content is we can optimize for embeddings. So generative AI systems work by encoding language into vector representations called embeddings. It's so helpful for them because they get the whole idea about the topics and the relevance between topics as well, because they are not just focused on keywords. It's far beyond keyword matching. So they got the content, they get the whole content, and they put into embeddings, and they see that which topic is relevant to which topic. For example, in embeddings, the king might relevant to the queen. The boy might be relevant to the girl. So embeddings are so helpful to encoding the language, because it's the most important talk. It's the most important the workflow, because if they don't know about the relevance or the actual content, they would not be doing the further stuff to showing the content to the relevant people and showing the relevant information. So uh, like we just discussed, it's not just about word, it's about concepts, the actual um big concepts. So they find the relationships between them, and the relationships are um, are based on their vector representations. So how we can get the benefit from that? So the clearer and more semantically rich your content is, the easier it is for AI models to parse, understand, and reuse it. So in terms of semantically rich, we have to make sure two things. The one is what kind of pages or topics we are covering on the website. Like the product pages, they are obviously uh, the definitive pages we have. But apart from product pages, how we are categorizing them, how we are using subcategories, uh, how we are writing our home page, and um how we are mentioning how we are different from the competitors, and uh, how the entities are covered on our web page. So the one is um, the macro semantics, like whatever the topics we are publishing on our web page, sorry, website. The other one is the micro semantics. Like we have the content. It could be the product page or the buying guide. Then what kind of semantic elements we are making sure that uh, we have ticked there. For example, uh, if there any code reference error or finding different kind of uh, you know relationships between the content, whatever we have discussed, like subject, predicate, object, SPO optimization, and different kind of attributes of processing in our content. So whenever you try to follow the semantics, then just go for two approaches. The one is at page level, the other one is at the website level. And if your content is semantically rich, or the data, like we just discussed before, that is semantically rich, it will help your website to get more visibility there. So here's some aspects we try to follow in our content or data. So we can use consistent terminology and avoid vague synonyms in the content. So so whatever we try to use for different entities, like for example, we define entity by X. So it's a good idea to keep defining it with X. And if there is a synonym that is not much vague and and from the dictionary perspective, that is not much distant, then we can use that by connecting it with that specific main terminology. So this is the idea here, that we still get the benefit of using multiple variations or templates in the content, and we still make the jobs of generative AI models easier, and we make sure that our content is semantically rich. So the other one is writing with clearly defined entities. For example, instead of this tool, say Google Search Console, and using named entities like brands, people, products, and places, help LLMs resolve meaning more effectively. So the idea is that, so in our framework, we follow in our agency. So we always start the paragraph with the main entity. Like here we have the Google Search Console. This is the main entity. And we repeat that entity maybe 2 to 3 times before we start with, or maybe use different relevant synonyms for that. And then we start using different pronouns for that. The idea is simple, that we make the jobs of machines much easier. Let's say if you're writing the content without any guidance for that, you can simply write whatever comes to your mind. Or if you're using an AI for content creation, then it could go wrong. So the idea is simple: write with the mindset of both users and both machines. Like users might understand about, like if you mention this tool, users might understand that you're talking about Google Search Console. But for machines, you have to make sure that you're writing in the correct way, that you are also satisfying both users and both machines. So the other most important element which you can use to in your content to make it more semantically optimized is using different modifiers and descriptors for more clarity. So you can, let's say if there is a word like agency, but if you add some modifications to that, or some more qualifiers, or some more contextual angles to that, then you can add some like enterprise SEO agency. It's specific and it's more aligned with the users, and it's more aligned with the business model. And if you just mention the agency, like if you're using like cheap AI content, and it just generate content without any kind of guidance, then there could be some words like like ambiguous words, which makes the job of both, machines and users hard. So, right, with proper modification and descriptors, it will make it will improve your content semantically and help the content to get more ranking. So there is an interesting thing, like what we just discussed uh, in embeddings or semantics or specificity, structured data. So most of the things we were using in our workflows even before generative AI models. So in semantics, we were using most of the stuff. Yes, there are some improvements to that as well, but it's not much different from the SEO. But yes, it's different, and there are some ways we try to follow to make sure that content is not just ranking in search engines and it's also ranking in, you know, getting visibility in different generative AI models. Let's like, for example, let me show you some stuff which I thought is somehow different. So there are like this point. So using tables, bullet points, or clearly labeled metrics. Yes, before generative AI models, we were uh, supposed to write content which is hierarchically good, but we were not focusing a lot on these elements. But after the generative AI models, we are more focused on that. So you know what? While I audit the content, I try to make sure that every sentence or every paragraph that is optimized for chunking, that is self-contained information, and that's not dispersed, or there is one you know the unified context is there, like every heading is unified and is complementary, and the context is not scattered. So um, this is I think this is different from whatever we were doing before. So let's talk about the next thing. So yeah, we are here. Semantic chunking. So generative engines pull sections, a sentence or paragraph or list, and use them to construct answers. So it's not just about your complete web page. It's about your individual elements on the web page. So a web page may contain different sections like headings, like paragraph. It could be like bullet points or whatever the sections you have on the web page. So now we are talking about the different thing which we were supposed to do in uh, the old SEO era. So it's not a good idea to bury information in long form. Like, there most of the time there are some pages, uh, they are just wall of content. Like there is no any partition, and they are just simple long paragraphs, and the information is buried there. So it makes the job of generative AI models hard, and obviously your content might not be ranking. That's why. So you have to make sure that it's not buried in the long form, and you're using clear structure in your content. So you can divide the information into clear self-contained chunks, each one expressing a complete idea on its own. So interestingly, it's also helpful for users as well. But for generative AI models optimization, it's a good idea to make your content structure in a way that is easy for machines to understand what you're talking about. It's so important to view your web page with the lens of generative AI expert if you get more visibility there. Even your product page. So your product page is the most important page, or the collection page. So you have to make sure that the page structure is totally aligned with those machines, or the way how models uh, understand your content. So these are some of the points which you can follow, or uh, you can take as a starting point if you start auditing your content. So it's so simple. So there should be one idea per paragraph, and you have to use bullets and list for clarity. So for clarity, for humans, it's easier to understand the information in bullets and list, and it helps your content to not look like the wild content, or uh, the content that is fluffed. It makes your content easier to read and get consumed. So you can use tables to break information into predictable, digestible formats. So tables are important to improve the content structure, but they should be used with the caution that you have to make sure that the tables are not overused, and they are only used for the information that is easier to present in tables. And you can avoid overusing pronouns in the content, and you can use concise heading before content blocks. So, in terms of pronouns, let's talk about that as well. So, pronouns are not bad. Um, Even if you write the content, so naturally you can use different pronouns. But the thing is that if you overuse those pronouns and you don't use different entities or the subjects in your content, then it makes hard for machines to uh, get the context of your content. So they do a lot of disambiguation. So there are some uh, NLP technologies, and the one is named entity recognition, and there are a lot of entity disambiguation technologies. So what they generally do is when you write the content, they understand the entities used in the content, and based on those entities, they get the context, or uh, the topicality of the content. So if you mostly use pronouns, then it it could be bad for your content if you talk about its alignment with the topics or the users. So if you use pronouns only where they make sense, or to avoid any kind of fluff in entities. So I would not say you should fluff the content with entities, but yes, you can use them in the healthy way. Like you use an entity, then you use any other synonym for that, and then you use pronoun. So you can use a mixture of these kind of things, and it will help your content to more look like natural and more user friendly, and also uh, optimized for different search engines and for generative AI models. And concise headings before the content block. So let's say if you're writing, so let me explain what that point actually is. So for example, if you're writing the product page and there is a main heading there, and under that main heading, you write, let's say 800 words. It's bad. So what you have to do is for you use the main heading, then you have to use subheading under that. And after each subheading, there must be some chunks of content, and those chunks must be must be around that. So one idea per paragraph, and each chunk may contain different bullets or lists for clarity. So that would be helpful for both understanding your content from the user's perspective and for machine's perspective. So that's so important because still I see a lot of product pages, or whatever, like articles or buying guides or categories. They're not optimized for that. So they just simply use a main heading and then push it 500 words under that. That's bad for user experience as well, and your readability is also affected. So these are some new things which we started to follow after the generative AI models got a lot of usage. And some other stuff we have here, like semantic triples. So these are important because so they build blocks of knowledge graph. So let me explain this stuff. So you know what actually the triple is. So the triple is this: subject, predicate, object. There is a subject and there is a predicate, and then there is an object. Based on these uh, three elements, the knowledge graph is being created, and knowledge graph contains triples and contains facts. So actually, the triple is a fact. So triple is a fact. Let me show you an example. Let's go to this. I'm not sure where I have the cloud opened. Let's here. Okay, so show me some examples of triples: subject, predicate, and object. So let's see what it comes up with. Uh, Missing fable 5. Okay, so simple factual triples. Paris is the capital of France. So you can see it's a fact. So Paris is a subject, is the capital of, is a predicate, and France is an object. Subject, predicate, object. So Albert Einstein was born in Germany. iPhone 15 has screen size 6.1 inches. So the thing is that these kind of triples are stored in Google Knowledge Graph, and they help Google to understand the facts. That's some real world facts actually. So what we do, what we can do from the perspective of optimizing content. So when we write the content, we try to make sure that our content has those facts, because if we have those triples in our content, they will help Google to match those triples with their own knowledge graph, and they will improve the trust because this content is factually correct. It contains factual information. It contains different associations in the right way, because you can see these are the associations. Let's say Toyota Corolla, petrol. This is an association. So Ahmad lives in Lahore. So Lahore and Ahmad, this is an association. So these associations, if we have used these kind of associations in the correct way in our content, so it will help our content to get much more advantage. So better entity identification, yeah, it's also important. So apart from associations, when you are using subject predicate object methodology in your content, so you have the subject here, and the subject is an entity. So if you're using multiple entities, that will help um, generative AI models to identify those entities you are using. And apart from that, there are different triples you are using. There are better connections you are making in your content, and the context uh, is also being enriched, because you are creating the context. Like this is the context, like Toyota with petrol. So these are two different entities, and when you combine them, you are making the contextual connection between both. So this is some kind of micro semantics which we follow while improve the content of an e-commerce store. So uh, the other things which we can make sure our content is optimized for, so we can avoid code reference error in our content. So first of all, we need to understand what's the code reference error is. So when a pronoun, noun, phrase, or alias links to the wrong entity in a text, so let's go to AI and ask for what's the code reference error. Huh. um, Give me example for code reference error in content. So it's related to NLP, I guess. Code reference error is related to NLP, I think so. Let's see what it shows. A code error happens when a pronoun or referring expression, it, this, they, the company, doesn't clearly point back to the entity it's supposed to. The reader or an LLM trying to extract entities can't tell what's being referred to. So, in simple words, you have used an entity in your content, and after that, you have started to use it, this, they, the company. So, the error occurs when this kind of uh, expressions or pronouns are not properly attributed to the main entity, and they face a lot of trouble. Let's go some examples here. When you connect your Shopify store to the analytics tool, it automatically syncs your data. Does it mean the Shopify store or the analytics tool? So here, this is the core access error because the model is not totally assured about if the it is about Shopify store or if it's about the analytics. A human guess is a parser may attach to the wrong entity. So you have to make sure that these errors are not in your content. You can simply like you can use Claude for that as well. You can create a you can create a project in Claude Code here we have, and you can audit your content based on that as well. So it's vital for AI search to understand the full context of document. Now, who is being discussed in text accurately summarize information and answer complex questions in situations where pronouns or synonyms are used to refer to the same entity. So synonyms are also important, which we just discussed, that you have to use relevant synonyms, not just totally off or distant synonyms. So uh, the other aspect we have here, that's readability of your content. So right now we are just discussing about the content or the data about you have on your website because you communicate with data to different generative AI models or search engines. So your content, uh, if your content readability is good, then it improves the user experience, it reduces the bounce rate, it improves the content accessibility. I guess they are easy to understand, and you have to write in alignment with the ICP, which we just discussed before, that you don't have to write a research paper to, to to make it optimized based on all that stuff. You have to write the information that is aligned with your ICP, and yes, that should be optimized for all that information. Then it will be helpful for your users, the actual end user, and it will get the advantage of these kind of optimization which we have just discussed. So we discussed the part of the content here. Now there are some other aspects which we can discuss. So shopping research in ChatGPT. So ChatGPT has done a great job here, and what it generally does is, let's go to shopping research in ChatGPT. So here you can see ChatGPT introduced this shopping research here, and you can see that now. Um, so user gave the query here. So that query is different. Mostly you can see that this query is not same like users were supposed to do on search engines. Now they are not just giving keywords. They are just giving prompts. So let's see. So you can see here it just give the prompt, and then this is the experience. So yeah, it's like a total experience, and it's like helping them to go through the complete purchasing experience. Like AI is helping the user to go through all the experience, because before the user have to visit multiple product pages and different kind of brands, but now he's just relying on AI to uh, researching that kind of products, or making sure that which product aligns with that specific user needs. So this is the important element which we can see here. And here you can see describe what you need, guide the research, receive the personalized buyer's guide. So shopping is powered by version of GPT-5, mini trained with reinforcement learning, especially for shopping tasks. So this is important for e-commerce stores. And we trained it to read trusted sites, cite where reliable sources, and synthesize information across many sources to produce high quality product research. We also designed it to be an interactive experience that could. So interactive is different from the previous era. That could update and refine its search in real time, incorporating new constraints and adjusting to feedback on user product preferences, resulting. So the feedback thing which they just mentioned. So I think it's also getting better and better based on how users give the feedback. So the next we have the agentic commerce. So the agentic commerce is actually is actually different from the content. So the agentic commerce is simply marketing to machines, and it's a protocol through which AI agents autonomously compare products and complete checkouts on users' behalf. So if you want to optimize your website for agentic commerce, you have to think like your data or the website is communicating with machines and you're marketing to machines. So here's how you can achieving that visibility. It's not just for users. And so these points, they are not just about users. They are focused on marketing to machines. So you can add complete features and fill out every possible field of product feed. So product feed is important to uh, optimize for that as well. And obviously, every product page has multiple features, so you can try to add the maximum features a product has and make the field optimized and updated for that. And make sure the feed contains the descriptions and why behind the product. So this is so important because you can simply write a simple description. Let's say a coffee warmer, for example. But if you write the why, then you can go so deep and you can write the actual why behind the product. Like, when you start a brand in e-commerce, there is a why behind your product. What what the actual problem your product is solving. So it's a good idea to add that specific why to your feed descriptions. It's helpful for machines to understand or get the more context of your product. And this is the part which is, I guess, which is so important. Apart from these marketing machines world, this part is so important for users as well and for your e-commerce business. Yes, AI has helped a lot here as well. Like it's the photography thing. There are different tools like Higgs field. People are using Cloud Code connection with different, MCP connectors, and the photography world has changed a lot. But yes, you have to make sure that the photography looks pure real. The experience is the actual physically how the product physically feel, and uh, it's not fake, or it doesn't look like AI generated. So photography is important for both your sales, conversions, like branding, your image search, and like we are here discussing about marketing to machines. So, the relationship type fields, you can use them, and here is the reason why you should use them. These defines how products are complementary to alternatives for or progressions from one another. So they help AI recommends the right item for a specific stage in a customer's journey. So this helps. So let's say there are some multiple alternatives of a product and some more relevant products. Not every product suits with one user. So if you have used this field, so it helps the models to recommend the relevant alternatives, or the specific contextually relevant products and reviews. So this is some of the part which is so important because there are websites which get real reviews, but there are some uh, I think there are some legal issues with that as well. If you get certain, if you generate your reviews with AI, I think so. There are some legal um, problems as well. But whatever the way we are doing, so let's talk about the reviews. So the reviews should not be like one word. Let's say a bad review could be like I liked it or I disliked it. It's a bad review. Even I liked it is a good review for the user, but for the perspective of marketing to machines. A bad review is not contextually enriched or not scenario based. So if a user mentioned that I like this, so there must be some scenarios why, the how, or the scenario, because simply saying I liked it or disliked it, it's not helpful for users. So the reviews should be enriched, and it should be scenario based, and it should point out the actual or the natural reason why a user disliked this product or why a user liked this product. So these are some of the ways which we discuss it. Obviously, it's a huge topic, and we can't cover this the whole topic here. But this is the basic foundation which we can follow while optimizing our e-commerce store for the AI search. And you know AI models are designed for the benefit of human. So most of the things which we just discussed, they're also helpful for users as well. They also help users to make purchasing decisions quite easily and do some wise decisions. And they also make the job of real world people easier, because previously, they simply write keywords and they search for different, they go to different pages and they spend some more time, and still there were some products which were hidden. But now it's it's a whole universe, and AI is changing the world. So the experience of buying something is totally changed, and you have to make sure that your e-commerce strategy is aligned with that change, and you are uh, you are aligned with that new era of AI search. So thank you so much for your time. Have a good day. Bye bye.